Evening, Buccaneer fans. Welcome to the Red Flag Podcast live show. Once again, here with you, brought to you by Bucks Report. Thank you so much, Bucks Report, for allowing us to do this show. As always, here to talk more Bucks with you with my main man, Phil Schwag, at Phil Schwag on Twitter. Bucks Report, once again, thank you for allowing us to do this. There's our personal Twitter handles, at BucksFan02 is me, Marc Magana, and Phil Schwag, Philip Schwegler. Beautiful night in Tampa, Phil.
Yeah, it's nice and cold tonight. Other than that, it's nice. I'm just going to start warming up here in a few days, so it kind of sucks, but enjoying the cold weather while we got it.
Yeah, we got the same thing in California, too, all the way over here. We've been pouring for like 3 or 4 days now. It's crazy. So, anyways, we are here to talk some Bucks, Phil. A lot of Bucks to talk, as we talked about last week, getting into the draft in the next couple weeks. But before we do that, though, we wanted to go ahead and give you guys kind of a new segment that's going to be on the show weekly. We're going to go ahead and talk about what's going on currently in the Bucks world. The media, that kind of thing. We'll kind of bring that to you every time we go live. We'll bring you the most up-to-date information, something that happened on Twitter, something that happened, this guy said that guy said that, all that kind of stuff. So today, Phil, the big thing that happened was the exchange between I guess I shouldn't say exchange between Bruce Arians and Antonio Brown. Rather, Antonio Brown responding to Bruce Arians' comments. Bruce Arians was asked on the Adam Schefter podcast. He was being interviewed, and he was asked about the Steelers situation. And he was asked, what do you think about it? And basically, Arians, in a roundabout way, said there's a lot of miscommunication. He did say that Antonio Brown there was a little bit too much diva in him, quote unquote. That's exactly the words that he used, Bruce Arians used. But he credited Antonio Brown, said he's a hard worker, a guy that shows up, a good football player. What do you think of the comments? I kind of draw something specific in reference to the Bucks, but I'll get to that later. What do you think of the comments that he made on that show, Phil?
Well, I'll go ahead and first and just read off what he actually tweeted out on Twitter today. He said, he didn't draft me. He drafted Emmanuel Sanders, same guys who missed rehab to go on networks to talk about me on situations. He have zero clue. Arians now wears Kangoo hats and glasses, crying, laughing face. But I'm a diva. Done seen it all. Then they say we friends. Stop. Lion, I'm assuming. Wow. So it kind of makes Bruce Arians' point come to truth. He's basically saying a little bit of diva. He's still a hard worker, still a really good football player, but I think he thinks people are talking about him when they might not really be talking about him, or he's always looking behind his back and making sure people think of him the way that he wants them to think of him. So I don't really agree with the way he handled this, especially calling out Emmanuel Sanders. And later on, Emmanuel Sanders says he was just, stating the obvious, but he talked him up a lot. So he still had his back. But I think he could have handled that way better than he did.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think the important point that it relates to the Buccaneers. What's up, Johnny Dean, Misador, and Jimmy Rowland? I think I saw Jimmy Rowland. What's up, guys? So one of the important things that I think it relates to the Bucs, right? Okay, so you hear Arians make these comments about Antonio Brown being a diva. Well, there's a diva, quote unquote, on the Buccaneers currently. There was a report that came out by Pewter Report a couple weeks ago that Deshaun Jackson, Bruce Arians said he wants to work with Deshaun Jackson. He wants him on this Buccaneers football team. I'm gonna call bull. I am going to call bull. I think that these comments by Arians point to that in Deshaun Jackson. They point to the diva. He looks for guys that aren't like that. I mean, that's not the type of guy that he likes. And I think honestly, what I draw from these comments, more importantly, is that what's up, Tony? Is that the Bucks want to have the mentality of a hardworking individual, and I don't know that Deshaun Jackson fits that. And that's kind of what I drew from the comments and the exchange is that. Although that report was there, I don't think the Bucs keep Deshaun Jackson. I really don't. With the cap situation the way it is and his attitude in general, I don't see it happening.
I don't see it happening either. I think that was more or less smokescreen, like you were saying. Maybe you're trying to build up his trade value, or make another team really want him because he's not there, but he's really there for them to grab. So Bruce Arians does believe in second chances. We've heard him say that in his press conference. The whole thing with Tyrann Mathieu when he was in Arizona, Jameis Winston even said himself he's had second chances of things that he's done. But I don't think Deshaun Jackson is part of that second chance in Tampa. If you look at what he did to the entire coaching staff, he got rid of everybody. Every single person on that coaching staff he got rid of because he wanted to change the culture of the team. If you keep one of those, I don't want to call it a cancer because that's a really strong word, but if you keep like one of those guys with that type of mentality on the team, that's going to spread over the course of 16 games. So I don't see Deshaun Jackson coming back. I see him getting traded. That money is not guaranteed as long as he's not on the team for the first week of actual regular season play. So come March 14th, when the new league season starts, we might see Deshaun Jackson get traded.
Yeah, I think at the very least he'll get traded, if not cut. Like I said, you take all the comments and all of that in context, then you flip the script completely and just look at the cap hit. I mean, I don't think Deshaun Jackson makes sense with the pass catchers that the Buccaneers have. I really don't see a way that he stays on maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't see a way that he stays on the roster. Chris Godwin, Justin Watson barely got any looks last year, and in the preseason he looked phenomenal. Of course, it's preseason, but he looked phenomenal in the preseason. So there's a lot of guys that I think when it comes to pass catching, the Bucs have. So anyways, that's what's new. That's what happened today. Actually, we'll be doing that segment every time we're live, kind of just talking about the more recent events, something that sparked our interest. That's what's new for today. Other than that, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show, as you called it, Phil. Let's start talking about grading out the offense. Let's start grading out the offense. And kind of just taking a look at the offense in general. We don't want to quite get into draft talk quite yet. Still a long time till draft and free agency. So this week we'll be grading out the offense. Next week we'll be grading out the defense and talking about some of the key players, some of the key positions that we need to see changes from for the Buccaneers to be successful next year. And that starts with the quarterback. Now, we'll start it off by a simple question. In your opinion, Phil, how much did the quarterback carousel that the Buccaneers had in 2018 affect both the quarterbacks?
I think it affected them a lot. When we go back and talk about what we've talked about on previous podcasts, they had that mentality, I got to look over my shoulder because one wrong thing I do, I'm going to get benched again and I may never play again. So, that plays really in the confidence of a player, especially quarterback, the guy who really needs to have the sharpest mind on the field. And you're having him think about that. That's not right. That makes it for a weird season. And if you guys haven't listened to Sports Day Tampa Bay with Rick Stroud, he actually had an interview with Jameis Winston. And he actually did say, Jameis Winston himself said, it was a weird season and the whole Twitch and QB things really affected him and affected Ryan Fitzpatrick. So you're having the guy that was part of it actually tell you that, yes, it was affecting him big time. And I don't think it was just affecting Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston. It was also affecting the receivers, affecting the offensive linemen, the running backs, because you're dealing with a different quarterback who's going to have different maybe calls or tendencies, mannerisms, that kind of thing. And you got to be able to look out for that while still remembering the route you're running or the play you're about to run or the block you're supposed to put up. So I think that put a big strain on the offense as a whole. And then maybe if he didn't have that, they score more points, win more games. But we'll never know because, it happened.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. I think it was a big deal. And I think the bigger, like you said, the mental aspect of the quarterback game is huge. I mean, when it comes to quarterbacks, you have to be mentally there. You have to be mentally focused. And if you're looking over your shoulder, and that's what Bruce Arians said, he said, the thing is that those guys were looking over their shoulder week in, week out. Who's going to be the quarterback? That doesn't help anybody, right? And so for a young guy, especially like Jameis, in terms of you look at his NFL experience, he's got a couple years under his belt. In terms of age, he's relatively young. And so these are the types of things that you need to help. You need to have stability, I should say, help a young quarterback. And so, yeah, I think I agree with you. And, it goes back to what we've talked about before. I don't know that Dirk ever really thought Jameis Winston was, quote unquote, his guy, right? I mean, I think that wasn't necessarily his guy. And we saw how Dirk Cutter behaved when it came to his guys, how they always got playtime, so on and so forth. And so I think it's important to definitely have that stability for Jameis Winston. Arians has already said that's his guy going into next year. So, we'll see how that plays out, but I think it'll be important. The next question I got for you, and I'll bring some interesting stats. Running back position. Did Dirk Cutter ever commit to the run? Phil, let me tell you something. We were 22nd in the league in rushing attempts per game. 24.3 rushing attempts per game was good for 22nd. Of the top 10 teams in rushing attempts, 8 of them made the playoffs. The only 2 that missed the playoffs were the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills. Tennessee was 8 and the Bills were 6. Everybody else made the playoffs. What do you think about committing to the run and how important it is for the Bucs next year?
Well, evidently, you just laid it out for us why it's so important. This team with a good run game made the postseason. Something I know you and me and all the other Bucs fans are like really craving to be able to experience before we die. But committing to run game, opens up so many other things for, the team to do. You're going to open up the play action pass. You're going to take relief off the quarterback. You're not having to throw the ball 58 times a game or throwing the ball down the field 60 yards, like whenever you really need to get out of a pickle. So the Buccaneers need to figure out the run game, but I think they need to figure out the offensive line before they finish out the run game because Peyton Barber didn't have a bad season. He was really close to 1,000 yards, and that was behind a bad offensive line. And we'll never know about Ronald Jones until the season starts if he's on the roster or not. We'll never know if he was actually supposed to be what he was at USC or not. So we definitely got to see what Bruce Arians brings onto this team as far as the run game goes.
Totally agree with you there. I think the run game is crucial. Committing to the run is crucial. Arians, again, another red flag, #red flag stats. Absolutely. But another thing that Arians said in his opening press conference, he said he wants to have a good run game. He said a good run game helps the quarterback position. And so I think he's going to commit to that, but I'm 100% on board with you too. I think the offensive line is the key to that. I don't think it's the running back. Signing the guy like I know a lot of people in the past couple of days have been talking about a guy like Le'Veon Bell. We don't have blockers for the guy. I mean, he's a phenomenal running back, but we don't have blockers for the guy. Our cap situation is already difficult. I was talking about this on Twitter earlier today. If you go to sign a guy like Le'Veon Bell, you're looking at least $15 million a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just too much money for the running back position. Philip Lindsay, James Conner, there are plenty of guys that are making way less. I mean, Saquon Barkley is a first-round high pick, and he isn't making anywhere near the 15 mil that Bell. He made, I think, 8 mil this year, or on average. So, those are guys that you look at and you say you can get a running back, a game-changing running back in the late rounds, but we might have one on the roster in Tampa already. I think that Ronald Jones hasn't been given his full opportunity, and I think Peyton Barber can be a running back number 1. I know that's something that we disagree on, right? Or do you think Peyton Barber can be a running back number 1?
I need to see what Ronald Jones is about. That we draft him in the second round. This guy, we need something out of him, especially being drafted in the first 3 rounds. Like he needs to either be the starter, or needs to be a complimentary back or something. I love Peyton Barber. I love how he runs, how hard he runs every single time, fights for all the yards he gets. And I would love to see him behind an actual offensive line that can block and make holes for him to run in through and not get penalties when he bursts off 45-yard runs.
Right.
So. If it comes down to Peyton Barber, I'm with it, but I'm not one of the guys that wants to go out there and spend $18 million on a running back when we have a decent running back now. Maybe just one to complement him.
Yeah. I think Ronald Jones can be that guy. We'll get to that later in the show too. Offensive line, moving down to offensive line when we're talking about the offense. Ryan Denton, he had a lot of penalties. And I don't know that, I think a lot of people are asking the question, was he worth the money? Do you think he was worth the money that we spent to sign him, Phil?
Well, I mean, looking at the offensive lineman this year, you easily tell Ali Marpet was the best offensive lineman we had. And I would say Ryan Jensen was our number 2 guy. He had a lot of penalties this season, which should never happen for especially a guy who's getting paid the most money to be a center in the National Football League. But the aggressiveness is still there. He's still the guy going down the field, making sure blocks are happening. He's making sure his guys aren't getting stepped on, spit on, all that stuff. I love that aggressiveness, that team player mentality, and that's something we need to keep. So I would say, maybe he's worth the money. Maybe I would have taken him for a little bit less than he got, but he's going to be here for a few years, and maybe that's a piece that we can build around him on the offensive line as far as like the tenacity and like the nastiness and all that stuff goes. So, yeah. Right.
And, I think one of the key points, too, which is something that I pointed out, too, that I feel like when you look at all the penalties that he received and you look at the rest of the offensive line, the only guy that matched, I think, his intensity along the offensive line was probably Ali Marpet. And when you put a guy like Ryan Jensen in front of the referees with a bunch of guys that don't match that tenacity, they're not halfway down the field making blocks. Donovan Smith was the perfect example. There were a couple plays that it looks like he just plain took the play off. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Obviously, I can't say with certainty that he didn't do anything, but because, schemes and offense. But there were certain plays where you're just like, he looks like he's taking it off. And when you put a guy like Donovan Smith next to a guy like Ryan Jensen, what are the refs going to see? You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're going to see Jensen halfway down the field hitting somebody. And so that, that I feel like that could be a reason for some of the penalties. I think Ryan Jensen is going to carry that mentality that Bruce Arians wants to have in Tampa, though. I think that's the mentality he brings. And that's I feel like an exciting prospect, I shouldn't say prospect, but an exciting possibility for the offensive line to become like him, right? That's kind of what we would like to see formed after.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we need more guys like that, especially at left tackle. Maybe Donovan Smith. We franchise tag him. He's a prove it to us this year, and he really steps it up this year. And I would love for some of that Ryan Jensen to get into him, especially guarding Jameis Winston's blind side. But we also need that on the right side of the line. Caleb Bednarik wasn't getting it done this year. We talked about it every single podcast, I'm pretty sure, during the season. So we definitely need to find either another guy like Ryan Jensen to fill those holes, or maybe see what Alex Kappa can do. If Alex Kappa can come into like another Ryan Jensen type player on the right side of the line. But we definitely need those nasty players on that offensive line, because one thing Bruce Arians has been harping on is building in the trenches. That's how we win football games, is in the trenches. And if you have the nastiest offensive line in the league, you might win a lot of football games, because those guys aren't going to give up a lot.
Yeah. You put Johnny Dean's second comment there. He says, where we need to replace 3 linemen at least. The wide receivers are great. The run game will evolve from the line upgrade. Put that one up for me real quick. It should be like the second one. Yeah. So, Johnny, this is a great point, man. The wide receivers are great. The run game will evolve from the line. Jameis will improve. What else needs to be fixed? The offensive line is the team's weakest link. I 100% agree with you. And because I agree with you that we need to replace 3 linemen, that's why I think that the Bucs, this is going back to what you were saying, Phil, I think the Bucs might end up keeping Donovan Smith in some form. It's just a tough today in today's NFL. It's tough to replace 3 offensive linemen. Caleb Bednarik needs to be replaced. That's not a question. Okay.
No,
Watson is not getting any younger. That means those 2 would be my priority before I replace Donovan Smith. If you're going to replace those guys solely through the draft or free agency, we've seen how that's worked out before. Jason Light in free agency, Sweezy, didn't really do much, and you could probably attribute that partially to coaching. But my concern is that we have 3 offensive line positions to fix, and I don't know that we can do that all in the draft or all in free agency, because guess what? Starting caliber offensive linemen are not just laying around out there. Everybody in the league, I mean, you can name at least 10 teams in the league that could use and upgrade at least one position, 15 if that. So I mean, that's
especially when you look at Donovan Smith. If he goes on the market, he's going to be the number 1 offensive tackle, and he's going to get picked up. Somebody's going to pay him because he has that experience. So starts, and he hasn't missed a start since he's been in the league. I think he's sat out maybe like 6 plays altogether, possibly throughout his career. So he's going to go to a team no matter what. It's just we got to figure out if the Buccaneers want to pay him what he wants to get paid, which is a lot.
Yeah, and that's the question. So we'll see how the Buccaneers address that. There's a couple options out there. Darrell Williams, Roger Saffold, and Jawan James are some names that jump to mind. But, man, none of those names inspire, this great confidence in me. Like, oh, man, Roger Saffold, and we're good to go. You know what I mean? That's not how I'm seeing it. So that's kind of the tough part. Is like, and that's why I say I think Donovan Smith ends up staying on the unit because of the weakest 3. Might have been the best, and that's dangerous to say, but it's the truth, and it's hard to replace a guy like that. You look at like Jonah Williams in the offense in the draft is an option for the Bucs. We'll definitely get into him as we start getting into draft talk and stuff like that. Is there, of those 3 names that I just listed, or any other guys that you're interested along the offensive line that the Bucs could pursue in free agency?
I'm kind of looking at that guy from Carolina, and I'm having what's his name, Darrell Williams.
Williams, yeah.
he took a year off. He had a knee injury this season. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He started, how many games did I tell you he started? I can't remember. He started, I think, all the games of prior seasons. He has plenty of starting caliber experience for being an offensive lineman. It could be a guy that we could plug in, maybe, as a rotational piece, maybe at that right tackle spot or something, just to give us a little more depth and maybe bring up another guy behind it. But I would eye him passing a physical or pending passing a physical and all that stuff. But that's definitely one of those free agents that's high on my list as far as the offensive line goes.
Yeah, and we had a follower on FPC Buccaneers. I can't remember the name of the guy he showed me, but he actually pointed out a guy to me from the Notre Dame offensive line. He was paired with Quentin Nelson last year, and that Notre Dame offensive line was really good, but he missed most of this year with an ACL. So that's another guy that you can target late in the draft. Like I said, I can't remember for the life of me his name, but that's another guy that you could target late in the draft too. I like Roger Saffold. I think of all the names that we've talked about, Roger Saffold is the one that jumps out to me. The Rams' running game has been phenomenal. Especially this past 2 weeks. In the playoffs, 2 100-yard rushers. So it's insane. Imagine. And with C.J. Anderson being picked up off the street too is what's crazy. But so I think that's a guy that jumps off, but he's getting a little bit older. Overall, I think there are places that the offensive line, or I should say, there are players out there that can help the offensive line. But the offensive line needs a lot of help. So we'll see how the Bucs handle that. I'll pause before we move on to Jameis Winston, Byron Leftwich, and Bruce Arians to tell you guys to check out Seat Giant, SeatGiant.com. It's the hottest tickets to sporting events. Don't just buy tickets, buy experiences. Guys, when you're using that SeatGiant.com app or on the app or on the website, make sure you use the promo code REDPOD in the checkout. That'll get you a discount. So make sure you guys check them out. Phil and I are from Full Press Coverage. We have a Twitter account, Full Press, or I should say FPC_Buccaneers. That's where most of our content can be found. We have articles coming out daily. I think we have 9 writers right now. We have a podcast like we do. We have this live show. So plenty of ways that you guys can get in touch with us. There's our page, fullpresscoverage.com/Buccaneers. Once again, shout out to Bucs Report for allowing us to be on. That being said, let's talk about it. Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, and Jameis Winston. I believe I said that in the exact reverse order that's pictured on the screen, but it sounded good. So that is what we're talking about, guys. So let's look at it. I think the biggest question, obviously, you want to see Jameis Winston improve. You want to see him get better. The question is, can we continue to see the gunslinger mentality from Jameis Winston while at the same time lowering his interceptions? Because turnovers and interceptions have been a problem in his career. Never been talent. It's never like, he doesn't have the arm strength. It's always been consistency. Can we get a consistent Jameis Winston? Can we get a Jameis Winston that doesn't turn the ball over? So what say you?
I think we can, especially having the coaches that we have. Bruce Arians said himself, Byron Leftwich and himself there coaching him. He's going to have the best coaching he's ever had in his entire life. And I thought he had good coaching at Florida State with Jimbo Fisher and his offensive staff. But I think the whole gunslinger mentality, I don't want that to go away from Jameis Winston, because that's what makes him, phenomenal. That's what he is. Yeah. Exactly. Like some of those amazing plays that he makes out of nowhere. I like that Chicago a few years ago when he literally ran around the back of the end zone for like 5 minutes and then threw the ball down to Mike Evans. I don't want that to leave him, because that's what makes him unique, and that's what makes him Jameis Winston. What I want to see him do is be more precise maybe with the football and more in tune to how the defense works. And I think that's what Bruce Arians and especially Byron Leftwich are going to do. Byron Leftwich played in Bruce Arians' system, so he knows it inside out. If Jameis Winston has any questions, like Bruce Arians said, he should know all the answers to those questions. So I don't think there's going to be any hiccup with them getting on the same page and Jameis Winston becoming a better passer. The whole thing is, how can they prevent his interceptions? And I think that just comes with how they're going to coach him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I think, Byron Leftwich showed some promise at the end of his stint there in Arizona with the play calling. But I am still a little bit concerned with Byron Leftwich calling plays. I know Bruce Arians is going to be fully involved in it. I know it's not going to be like Bruce Arians is just going to hand it off and move on. But, it is still concerning. We'll see how that goes. I'd be interested to see that. But like you said, I don't want him to lose his gunslinger mentality. And with the way that their staff has come in, I don't think they do either. I'm not seeing them say, I don't want him to throw interceptions. I don't want him. As a matter of fact, if I remember right, he said, I don't want him to be afraid to throw interceptions. I think that's the exact goal. Yeah, to throw the ball, move the ball around. So that's something that we should see improvement from. It'll just be interesting to see the connection of those three minds working together. Jameis Winston, Byron Leftwich, and Bruce Arians all working together. I don't know. There's potential there. There's a lot of potential there. I'm not being, negative about it. But Byron Leftwich as a play caller is, Winston. Books Report says Winston, Leftwich, and Arians sounds like a law firm. Absolutely, it does. It'd probably be the best law firm ever. No risk it, no biscuit, right?
Can we hashtag that? Bucks Reports takes. I don't know.
Anyways, Books Reports. Yeah. No, it's true. But so that's just a little concerning to me. I should just say that's the kind of the thing that I'm interested to see how it develops, the Leftwich and Jameis Winston connection, because you have to have, as much as Arians is going to be involved, Leftwich and Winston have to be on the same page. Even if Arians is basically developing the game plan, calling the game, if Leftwich and Winston are not on the same page, that can cause problems. And with such a young play caller, in terms of his experience play calling, I'm not sure what we'll see or what we'll get quite yet, even though, like I said, at the end of his time in Arizona, he was looking solid. So that being said, let's move.
One more thing before we move on. I think it's going to be a good marriage if you think about it, because Leftwich has played the game before, so he understands how the quarterback position works. And I don't feel like they're going to just say, hey, Jameis, we're not going to ask you how or what you like to do. We're just going to game plan it out like this. I feel like they're going to get together and be like, I like running this package. I like running this package. I like throwing over here. I like throwing to this player in this situation. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they're going to bring in Jameis Winston. He's going to be part of the game plan, and that's one of the big things that Bruce Arians I think does best is he plays to the strengths of his players. And we've talked about that for the past few weeks now. So definitely having Jameis Winston and Byron Leftwich, they need to be like a marriage. They need to be together all the time. They need to figure out how they feel about this and that and everything. And I think you'll see Jameis Winston turn into a whole new quarterback as far as errors go.
Yeah. I hope that's the case. It's make it or break it year for Jameis Winston. We'll see. I hope that's the case. I hope that we can see his talent more consistently, because his talent has never been a problem, like we've talked about multiple times. So, moving on to who will the Bucks starting running back be in 2019? I'll just start this off by saying it should not be in any world Le'Veon Bell. It should not be. If 2019 opens up and Le'Veon Bell comes running through the Bucks, like the Bucks entrance thing. Tunnel. I can't even think of the word right now. I'm just so.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm buying a jersey if he does. I'm just saying.
A Le'Veon Bell jersey.
I would. It's Tampa Bay on it. Number 26, baby. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding.
I just can't. I can't reason in my head paying a guy 15 million. Why not Bell? Because I can't pay a guy 15 million a year. I just can't. I mean, there's no situation where that makes fiscal sense. I just don't think that it makes any sense to go ahead and pay a guy that much with the cap situation how it is. We're already looking at, there's rumors. Are we going to cut McCoy? Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Or what about Deshaun Jackson? All those types of questions. Those are really, really important questions. And I don't think the answer is let's sign Le'Veon Bell to 15 mil a year, because that's what it's going to be at least no less than 15 mil a year. That's what I believe the last offer from the Steelers was 14.5 or 15 or like low 15s. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I'll go make that money right now. What do you need me to do? I'll run into the big guy all day.
So you're on board. Is that what you're telling me? But yeah.
No, I'm not on board. I'm not on board at all. I don't want to spend that money. But going back on the Jameis Winston thing real quick, Bucks Report does bring up a very solid point. When Fisher took the reins off of Winston at Florida State, he was scoring touchdowns. He was throwing the ball, making plays like crazy. And I think that's what Arians is going to do, because he's that aggressive play caller. So sorry to go back to our prior subject, but I thought that was very interesting. And I appreciate you putting it up there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So it will be interesting to see and I think Arians is going to do that too. I think Arians is going to say, have fun, throw the ball around, let's score some touchdowns. I mean, I think that's what he's going to say. Basically, I feel like that's going to be his philosophy. So, but yeah, I just don't, going back to the Bell thing, I just don't see a reason to pay a guy that much. You look at a guy like Philip Lindsay, you look at a guy like James Conner, That offensive line in some of Bell's best years, that offensive line was top 10 in the years where he was over 1,000. I believe it was third. Stephen Beck told me this on Twitter. I believe it was third, sixth, and seventh, or somewhere in that order. But anyways, they were phenomenal. Offensive line was phenomenal. That is not the offensive line that the Buccaneers have right now.
No,
let me give you this stat real quick before I let you answer the question. So the Buccaneers allowed from weeks 9 to 16. The Buccaneers allowed 56 quarterback hits. I think that's what I wrote down. I think it was 56. I'm pretty sure is the number. That's how many quarterback hits they allowed in that span. So if they're allowing that many quarterback hits, the running game did nothing. It's not like Peyton Barber was over 1,000, 1,200 yards. They're allowing quarterback hits. They weren't blocking for the run. The offensive line to me is the problem. It's not the running back.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's running back, and that goes back to saying what we were talking about the offensive line. It needs to be upgraded. If we don't upgrade that, then why are we going to upgrade the running back position when the running back predominantly has to lean on the offensive line for them to succeed, especially with all those quarterback hits? I mean, imagine if we had half of those quarterback hits, how many times Jameis Winston could have stood up in the pocket and actually make a play, or Ryan Fitzpatrick, whoever was back there. Remember, we were talking about before we started the show, Jameis Winston led the team, I think 3, maybe 4 weeks in rushing yards on the team.
Yeah.
You don't want the quarterback leading your team in rushing. That means the offensive line is just crap. To put it blatantly like that. So definitely upgrade the offensive line before we upgrade the running back position. And answer the question, who's going to be the Bucs starting running back for 2019? Pending any weird free agency signings or someone in the draft, Peyton Barber is going to be your starting running back in heading into the 2019 season. I think Bruce Arians is going to really like what he sees on tape from that guy. I think they share the same mentality.
Hard worker.
Running the ball.
I mean, that's the guy. Yeah, that's a hard worker, and that's what Arians talks about. I want to get to a couple comments in the chat. So Stephen Raffman says Bell is a running back and a wide receiver in one position. He is special, and he will get paid. You have no arguments from me here. Everything you said. I just don't want to pay him. That's not me. The Buccaneers, though. I don't think the Buccaneers should want to pay him. That's my only point. He's a phenomenal position guy. You're not, he's good. He's really good, really patient. You watch him run. I just feel like the Bucs to pay him would be a mistake. Now, and especially with the cap situation that we're in.
Oh, horrible.
Bucs Report. Great comment. A guy who held out for more money probably isn't the best guy to bring into a locker room where you're trying to change the culture. Same response as we talked about Antonio Brown. That's the comments that we opened the show up with this morning. Arians said he's a little too diva. That's what Arians said. And so, I don't think that a guy like that is somebody that Arians is going to be looking at favorably. So I think that's the important part. Sean Osborne also put in the chat too a little bit earlier. We have no right side of the line. You're right. Dotson, Enoch, both liabilities, both positions that need to be improved going into next year. And that's why I think that comes first. I think that's the main point we're both making, is that comes before the running back position. I think that Peyton Barber showed what he put on tape was running with no offensive line. I mean, there was a specific run, I think it was against the Browns, where he carried like 4 guys. Do you remember the run I'm talking about, Phil?
Yeah, I do. And he was dragging them.
He was dragging people that he was hit behind the line, probably 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and somehow ended up turning it into a 4-yard gain. That to me is what you want. Yeah, that's what you want in a running back. That's the type of hard worker that you want.
You think about Ronald Jones, 44 rushing yards that he had this season? Those are probably honestly, you could double those yards because that's how far back behind the line he had to run to even try to make a yard or get back to the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. So anybody doubting Ronald Jones, I mean, you can't say that he's not a good running back because you don't know. You can't run behind that line, especially being a rookie in the NFL. You need to get that experience. You need to get that you need to get those reps in. The more reps, the better the running back becomes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to get those reps, and that's something that Arians talked about, having 2 separate practices where you get to see guys that aren't getting as many reps. You get to, and he said, how are we going to see diamonds in the rough if they're on the sideline during practice? And so that's the type of mentality that this coaching staff brings that I think will be important. And you see, last I saw a tweet from Carmen Vitale, one of the Bucks media personalities on Twitter, and Dirk Cutter at this point had 19 personnel on his staff. Arians currently has 21, and I think that'll still continue to increase, which is pointing towards the 2 practices that he wants to have. He wants to have eyes on the practices. He wants to have people watching guys to make sure that they're getting touches if they earn them in practice. And Ronald Jones is a guy that I think he will improve. And if you can, have the 2-headed monster of Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber, then I think the Bucs are okay. To me, the running back position is just not a position that you go out and spend a lot of money on. A lot of guys historically have shown us that they usually either don't turn out to be worth it, or you can find somebody at least similar. Like the gentleman was saying in chat. Bell is a unique player, and he's special. But he's not 15 million special. That's the thing. You can find a guy that makes half as much. Saquon Barkley is an example too. Guys that make half as much that will be able to at least do 80, maybe 70% of what he can do, and then get a guy in there to support him, like Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones, that combination. Like I said, with the cap situation, it's just tough. Anyways, sounds good. Yeah, sorry, Johnny. I'm like bouncing up and down. I get excited when I start getting into this. Anyways, that being said, what about Ronald Jones specifically do you want to see improve under this coaching staff? What specific? Obviously, he needs to get more touches. He needs to get more rushing yards. Those are obvious things. But was there certain parts of his game that you felt like needed to get better?
Yeah, I think anybody can point this one out. I don't think his hands were where they're supposed to be, especially being a back in the NFL, where you dump those passes off when nothing else is happening. That guy's got to catch the ball. He dropped a big one, I want to say, against Atlanta at the end of the season. Totally dropped it. It was on him. He should have had that ball, and it would have been first down or whatever it was. Definitely his pass catching ability, his routes, like Johnny Dean was bringing up, his running routes. One of the interceptions I think early on in the season Jameis Winston had was because Ronald Jones or somebody wasn't running the correct route, and then that interception happened, and that stopped the game's momentum. So definitely picking up the blitzes and all that stuff, because that's why they kept Jacquizz Rodgers. If you didn't realize that, Jacquizz Rodgers was a running back for the Buccaneers again this year, because one, he is kind of a hard running rusher. There we go. But he's also very good at picking up, the pass protection. That's why you saw him in with a lot of third downs when they had to, really try to dump the ball off. He's really good, blocking for the pass. So if Ronald Jones wants to make the team, and if they bring in a new running back, maybe free agency or whatever, and they want to start him before him, he's going to really need to have to clean up his pass protection, or he's not going to have a spot on the team.
Pass protection, I think, is crucial. I think catching the ball is just a matter of focus. Obviously, some guys are better at it than others. That's why you have wide receivers in the league, obviously. But I think that pass protection is crucial for a running back on any team. That's how you get on the field. And that's a big reason why Ronald Jones wasn't on the field under Dirk Cutter. So I think that's, and I think that's something that we'll see repeated. Bruce Arians wants to have guys that can do multiple things on multiple levels, not just a guy that's one-dimensional. Hey, we put him in there. Charles Sims a couple years ago was an example of that. When Charles Sims was in the game, we knew it was going to be a pass. It was like an 80% chance that it was going to be a pass because he couldn't run. So I think that's important for the Bucs.
Twinkle toes.
Yeah, twinkle toes. Yes. So that's exactly right. So I think we'll see that with Ronald Jones, at least him improve in that aspect, his pass protection, and then, like you said, running his routes. Johnny Dean pointed that out, and so on. So, go ahead, Phil.
So he's saying Jones is a 2-down back. We don't know yet. We haven't really seen him even play 1 down. So I definitely want to see him, get more involved during training camp, maybe see what he really has. They're running those 2 practices, so there should be no excuse of getting reps in and then really showing up on the preseason game. So I'm still going with Peyton Barber as starting running back, and I'm assuming you are too, right?
Yeah, I got Peyton Barber as a running back number 1. I know I'm in the there's very few that he can be a running back number 1, but I think if you give him an offensive line, he can. So I hope the Bucs do give him an offensive line, and then we can actually properly see about that. I know there was some talk about Quan Alexander. Definitely want to get to him on the next week's portion where we talk about the defensive grading out, because I'm actually wearing a Quan Alexander jersey. I don't know if you see it. But I'm a big fan of Quan. I got a light Tyrella shirt here too. So big fan of Quan.
I tried to wear a Quan jersey, but Mark told me it wasn't allowed. So
yeah, I did. I was like, look, man, we can't match, bro. Like we can't do that. That's not allowed. It's written in the rule book. I'm pretty sure Bucks Report told me you can't match. That's what I told. That's what I was told. So, anyways, that being said, guys, let's get to a couple final questions. I know you guys have been spitting things out here. Is there anything that we can answer or we can talk about with you? Obviously, Phil and I enjoy talking Bucks and really enjoy just getting interaction from you guys. So just a couple questions. Let me just tell you right now, no on Bell. Don't put that one in there. Anything else like that? Phil, if you could pull up some questions for us.
Yep, I'm looking.
Johnny Dean says, wait, or what? I mean, he is a first and second down feedback. How's Jeremy? How's Jeremy Nichols working out? Jones and McNoname prove Light's failure. Oh man.
I knew
don't get me started on Light. Don't get me started on Light, Sean. I don't get me started on Light, man. I'm a big defender of his. I will say though that it seemed to be one of his Achilles heels is the running back position, because you're right, Jeremy McNichols and Ronald Jones kind of really just haven't done anything yet. Jeremy McNichols was an attitude problem, I think. I mean, we saw that and so on. Nick, I'll get to your question right now. Let me just finish this. But we saw that with Jeremy McNichols, and with Ronald Jones, I think the problem has been just touches. I think we'll see a better Ronald Jones next year. Nick says, who do you want? Nick Fisher says, who do you want in the first round? Nick, thanks for the question. Phil, who do you want in the first round?
Right now, my eyes on Jonah Williams from Alabama. We really need to upgrade that offensive line. I got a feeling, though, Bruce Arians is going to draft a defensive guy, possibly Jason Light. So Greedy Williams will be that next guy. I really want Jonah Williams. That's who I want.
I say Jonah's a big I'd say Jonah's a big guy. That's an obvious pick for us. But the thing is, he might not be there at 5. So if he's not at 5, Quinnen Williams is a guy. I mean, he might not be there at 5 either. But I think the Bucks, when it comes to the draft, are in prime position to either trade back or take a prime guy at 5. I mean, you could take whoever you want at 5, but with Kyler Murray declaring for the NFL draft, I think it really pushes up the need for quarterbacks. Yeah. People are going to want to get up. And so that 5 is like prime real estate, I think, for the Bucs to make a move. But Jonah Williams would probably be my number 1 guy on my board right now for the Bucs. Nick Anderson says, who do you see possibly being our backup quarterback? Phil.
This one's kind of hard because you got to think who's really out there that wants to be a backup
Nick
quarterback.
Foles?
No, we're not signing Nick Foles is about he's about to get a big deal by Philadelphia. They're going to get rid of Carson Wentz. I'm not sure if Blaine Gabbert's available, but I know Bruce Arians really likes how he plays the game when he played in Arizona with them. Something I heard, I don't want to say on the podcast today, Mike Glennon's name came up as coming back to the Buccaneers as a backup. So I'm not sure. I say keep Ryan Griffin. I think like Ryan Griffin. I do too. He's been here for 4 years now, 5 years with Jameis Winston.
The thing is he's not. He was Kirk. He was Kirk's guy, right? And so I don't know if he's Arians' guy, but I like what he put on, what he showed us in the limited time that he did get a chance to play.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Ryan Griffin. If he stayed, I'd be fine. For maybe draft a guy in one of the lower rounds. I think we switched our 6 and 7, so we don't have a 6 now. We have a 7. So yeah, maybe pick him up there or pick up somebody on the low off the street.
I feel like Mitador says Arians will bring in someone who knows his scheme. I think that it's a possibility the Bucks go quarterback late in the draft. I think that makes sense. With a project type of a quarterback. I'm not saying, your new starter, but to me, it makes sense if Arian goes out and gets the guy that, you might be sit behind Jameis for a while, but why not? I mean, it's a position of need, and we're not really sure what happens with Jameis, although Arians has declared him his guy. Fred Sailita. Not sure if I pronounced that right. Sorry, Fred. But we keep in Humphreys, man. Like Bucks Report said, I hope so, because I tell you I think Humphreys is a crucial ball catcher, chain mover, whatever you want to say, however you want to put it. But more important than that, Arians is primary comment that he wants to make, or that he said, is he wants to make Jameis comfortable. I mean, there's very few on that team that have more chemistry than Jameis Winston and Adam Humphries. I mean, they have chemistry. Brait has been his guy. Evans has been his guy. Humphries has been a really, really crucial part of that offense, especially for Jameis Winston. What do you think, Bill?
I mean, yeah, and you need to keep Adam Humphries. It's a security blanket, like we've said on our podcast many times. Him and Cameron Brate, he knows if he throws the ball to Adam Humphries, he's going to catch the ball. I mean, I think he's had one bad fumble in Dallas like 2 years ago in 2016, maybe a drop this year. But I mean, you look at that. What was it, the last game? He got leveled out the top and leveled out the bottom, still held on to the ball. Like, that man's a monster. You don't want to get rid of that kind of guy. He might demand the money, though, that Deshaun Jackson is making, which is the $10 million, if he made it on the open market. So that's the only problem I see, is maybe the money. But if he wants to be on the team, maybe it takes, a little, hometown discount or something, maybe one more year, and see if they get more money down the road. But you have to keep Adam Humphries on this team.
I think Greg Auman from The Athletic reported that his according to Spot Track, which is a contract, basically a thing that determines the contract value for a player, said that Adam Humphries was about $8 million a year. That's what his contract was. I think it's possible he takes a hometown discount. I keep Hump for 6, 7. 8 is starting to push it, especially with the cap situation we're in. But I think Humphries is that good. So. Yeah, definitely. We'll keep an eye on that situation. And then I know there was a question about, there we go, Bobo Wilson. Where does Bobo fit in, if at all? I think right now Bobo fits in as a punt returner, kick returner, kind of a guy. But I don't know, again, Arians is kind of changing everything, not changing everything, but I should say bringing in guys that he likes. Does Bobo fit that model? I'm not sure. What do you think, Phil?
I think he does. You can watch Hard Knocks and say what you want about him, being stubborn-headed or whatever, and like talking about coaches, but he really put in a lot of work this year, and it really showed. Like I shared on the last podcast, he was 5th in the league on kick returns, 5th in the whole entire league on kick returns. He has speed, okay? And yes, he's from Florida State, so I'm going to be behind him. Just kidding. I don't put my college into there, but no, he can be fast too. We've seen him burn a couple of guys during this year with the small playing time he had. So I think he might have a role on this team. I think if they do get rid of Deshaun Jackson and bring back Adam Humphries, I think you'll see more Justin Watson and more Bobo Wilson actually in the mix during game day, on actual real playing time on the offense.
Yeah. And last question we'll do, I saw a question in there about the Bucs switching to a 3-4, but Phil, if you can't find it, that's okay. But I believe it was either, I'm not sure who asked it.
McCoy?
What's that?
Was it this one with McCoy in there? If we go to a 3-4 defense, do you trade or let McCoy go?
Yeah, we'll do this one as the last question. What was the question again? Can you repeat it for me one more time?
So if we go to a 3-4 defense, do you trade or let McCoy go? That is from Steven Raffman.
Okay, Steven, I think that we don't go, quote unquote, to 3-4. I think Johnny said this in the comments as well. I think they play a kind of a combination. I think they'll play some 3-4 looks where we have the personnel to go 3-4. We have the personnel to go 4-3 as well. So I think we'll get to see a mixture of both looks under Bowles. He's an aggressive defensive coordinator. We're going to see them being after the quarterback. So my answer would be that I would like to keep Gerald McCoy, because I think Gerald McCoy can play end in a 3-4 or DT in a 4-3. So I think kind of that's the feeling. But we'll see how that works out, and then we'll kind of go from there. I think it'll be important to see how Gerald, because I think there's a possibility he maybe restructures his contract because of the cap situation the Buccaneers are in, but we'll see how that goes. What do you think? Same kind of thing?
I would hate to see Gerald McCoy go. I mean, he takes a lot of heat, man. If he's not here, who's going to play the way he does, and who is going to be game plan for against opposing teams like he has been? He still has the fastest get off, I think, of any defensive lineman, and that's something you can't really teach somebody. I don't think. He's done a lot in the community too, so I mean, you hate to put that whole thing in there, being in Tampa Bay as long as he has and everything, but he's a part of this team. I would hate to see him go. He does have a spot, like you were saying. He can be a 3-4 end if need be with JPP, and then you have what's his name, Vita Vea up in the middle.
Vita Vea can play nose tackle, yeah.
we can find him a spot. I just think they need to restructure his contract, because I think that's one of the problems that's going to really hurt the cap again.
Yeah. I think the cap is the biggest question. There are some cuts that can be made. Golston can be cut. Vinny Curry, I don't know if he did enough to stay around. So Vinny Curry can be cut. Sean Jackson is a whole lot of money that you can free up. Mitch Unrein, I don't even know. I saw the guy tweet the other day. That's about the most that I've seen from him. Yeah, and that's about the most that I've seen from him. And then Bo Allen is an option to be cut as well. So I feel like there's plenty of options to help the cap situation. Musador says, I think Conti is working for Lyft. I think he does both. I think he does Lyft and Uber. He's a hard worker guy. That's
my guy. Conti's my guy. Lay off him. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Bucks Report, thank you guys so much for having us on. Once again, SeatGiant.com, get the hottest tickets to sporting events. Don't just buy tickets, buy experiences. Enter the promo code REDPOD in the checkout, and you will receive a discount. Most of our work can be found at fullpresscoverage.com/Buccaneers. That's where you can find our articles and that kind of thing. And then the Red Flag Podcast, I think Bucks Report posted in there. Where can we find the Red Flag Podcast? Under iTunes, we have a full press coverage. That's actually the pipeline for all of our podcasts, but you can also see other teams' podcasts. We're also on Google Play. Got to get that one a little bit situated, but we're on Google Play as well. And we're working on getting on YouTube as well with both the live shows and the podcast. So we'll get back to you with that. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Johnny, Nick, Misador, Sean Osborne, Steven, I believe was his name. Lots of names. Bucks Report, as many names as I can remember. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Go Bucks. You guys have a good night. We'll be back next week. Fullpresscoverage.com. Buccaneers. Check that out.